RCL NGUID right here, and it's already entered, see, 1641. That wasn't a new structure.
Susan, it's really easy if you have the road selected too, because they're both available on the attributes pane.
Thank you, Glenn. So if you select both of them.
Well, we only got one.
I know, I have to, it's the shift, not the.
There you go.
And I have the parcel selected too, but we're just going to pretend it's not here.
So you can just expand the center lines.
Yeah. And then you have the center lines here, and there's your 1632. That's wrong. That's the
just click on it. Click on that. Click on the 1632, and then you can just right-click copy. You don't even need to select it.
Yeah, I know. My computer is just really slow for some reason. So, well, making me select it. Copy, and then you come over to the point, and you can just paste it right in. It weren't there. So yeah, so it's and just keep in your mind, all the center lines are going to have an NGUID. There are things we got to talk about that are going to kind of trip you up, but you haven't split the road. You've just put a new structure on the road. You've all make sure the road already has its end. If it's a brand new subdivision road, you'll have to assign the number for the road. And then when you assign the address points, you can select, if you're doing a subdivision road, select them all and then just calculate that same ID into all of those points. That, like, remember, it establishes a tabular and a tabular relationship between that specific center line and the points, and it's based on spatial, it's based on actually the addressing, where that address connects to that center line. Notice right below it, RCL side. This 1311 is on the left side of the road. Does everybody see that? Road starts here. There's an arrow on this end. This would be from the beginning of the road, the left side. This is the right side. It's an odd number. The odd addressing should be on that side of the road. You just enter a left, an L. That's all, L's and R's. So after you do the ID, you enter whether it's on the left side of the road or the right side of the road.
And
we are hoping.
I was going to say RCL side will be a domain also, just left and right, L and R. But anyway, okay.
There is, we're hoping to automate as many of these things as possible, but in the short term, just developing these habits. Yes, we know it's extra work. Yes, we know it's going to slow you down, but what it's going to do is prevent everybody pulling their hair out and trying to calculate all these things at the very end. It just becomes a practice you get into. When you put a new address point out, you're going to open up the table, fill in the country, the county and the PSAP, and then you're going to do these IDs. Same thing with the center lines.
Can I make one point, Susan?
Yes.
This ties all this together, sort of, but for the IDs, that site number field and the agency ID are required to build the actual site NGUID. So, I can't calculate if just keep that in mind. When Susan was pointing out how she got the highest number and filled that number in, that's great. But you still need something in the agency ID also before the actual ID value and the site NGUID can be calculated.
Okay, but we
haven't gotten to that yet, I know.
Yeah, well, we're talking about maintaining the data that's is being prepared for next generation or is being used for next generation 911. So you're going to have the expectation that the data you get is going to have what Glenn just spoke about in it, okay? We really want to get Glenn talking, getting people into the good habit of doing this. And if they have issues because these agency IDs aren't there or whatever, obviously Missouri doesn't have their agency IDs assigned, but we can still put site numbers in there.
Right, and we're using placeholder values from Missouri agencies right now anyway.
Okay. So just again, high level expectation that the data has been prepped for the analyst to be able to continue working it forward. And yes, understand these IDs need to be unique. They can't be duplicated. You can have gaps. They don't have to be sequential.
Correct.
But we don't want to have, if you delete a house, you lose that ID. Don't worry about having to assign it again. It's just gone. You just keep going higher in the list, okay? So, don't worry about sequential. Just always go to the next higher. So Julie, did we get the things on that manual piece?
We did. I mean, some of the things you talked about, we had actually put as a script thing that would have.
Yeah, it was a future script. So future scripts are going to be obviously.
Yeah. But if you see the scripted tool section, so if we want to change that to have everybody fill in their agency and all that as they're going along.
Well, the thing is, I don't. I mean, if once it's all done and they're in maintenance, it's probably. I don't know what the best answer to that is. To do it as you go, or to just run a script once a week to update some of that stuff.
Okay.
I mean,
we determined already, Glenn, that we are not going to be able to quickly or even easily create a script to code left and rights and all these other things and splits and all that. We agreed we would be doing all those things manually until we had our new tools ready. Okay.
Correct.
Which would be closer to the end of the year. So in the short term, because it's Oklahoma especially is ready for upload, Alabama, Illinois, all of those are ready for upload now. We need to start doing what we just described, that we're going to be manually assigning these IDs and manually assigning the left or right side of the road.
Okay.
I mean, are you having an argument against that?
No, I'm not at all, because I already got the scripts that will do some of these things, but
So the site number, this one, Julie, the site number under scripted should move up to manual. It should, and the RCL side, those two that aren't GUID should rise up to the beginning, because once we have a site number and an RCL number, we can calculate that GUID just by doing that calculation to attach the ID to the end of it, the agency ID to the end of it. So we'll get through this. Okay, what we'll do is Glenn and I and Julie, Ryan, whatever, we'll go through this document and order it. But in this piece right here, to enter the PSAP, to enter, I'm sorry, I'm using my document, you can't see it. Julie, can you go? Oh, I probably am sharing.
Yes, you're sharing it, yeah.
Yeah.
I am making
the
changes on the Google Doc, so.
Yeah, the PSAP, the county, the GUID for the road center line, the side of the road is manual entry, and then the site ID as well. So those are the ones that the site number actually that goes up there.
So this is for address points, right?
Yep.
Susan. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, for address points. Yeah, but so the site number does need to go up into here. Yeah.
Okay.
All of these things can easily be scripted. The GUIDs are a combination of a number with an ID. That also can be scripted if we have the number.
Keep in mind, a lot of these field names have been changed from what's on this document also, just FYI.
We will make sure that you have a spreadsheet that details what that mapping is on your specific data. It will be toward the beginning of your database as it is here.
Yep. They'll be in the same place. They're just going to be slightly renamed. That's all.
Okay.
All right. Susan, do you just want to stay presenter and show your document?
Yep, I can go ahead and show mine. Yep.
And then, so we're on to Centerline.
Well, the things that, when you get your final list here, the things that are in the scripted via tool prior to upload will be a list that you don't have to, it'll be a list of items that we will script that you don't have to touch, okay? So as an analyst, whoever, all of us are doing analyst projects, every single one of us. So as an analyst, you're going to be doing all of this through the form on the top, all of this manually, and there'll just be 4 or 5 things here. And then all of the bottom one is just an FYI, don't worry about it. Like you'll open the table, you'll see, oh, there's country. Should I just type in United States? Well, you can if you want, but it's all the same. We're just going to do it all at the end. Don't worry about it. It'll be scripted. Center lines, essentially the same thing. Okay. So you all are using at least version 165. We've got 167 of Address It that I think I just saw that that Michael was in Dropbox last night, Glenn. So he may have that new build out.
Okay.
Yeah, I got Dropbox notification. All of the things in this form you're going to be able to fill on this section on your form itself. Okay. On the form that you'll be getting this next version of in a few days. When you open this, you're going to actually have all of these, and you're going to also have municipality is going to be squeezed in here too. So it's going to be your left from, your right from, your MSAG community, which is community name listed in the MSAG, your postal community, which is where they get mail, and before the ESN, you'll have another one called municipality. Municipality is filled in with the name of the incorporated city if it's inside a city, and if it's not inside a city, it gets the word unincorporated added. So as you put out an address, make sure your city boundaries are on so you know if you're inside a city or not. You know, some of us don't do very little stuff inside cities. Almost everything is outside cities because that's where most of the growth is in many of the places where we work. But if it's inside a city, they need to know that. So those are the form elements, the elements on the actual form, okay? Manual entry, okay. We have the name of the PSAP, same as we had in the address. I do not care one bit if you fill those things out at the very end of the week or whenever. This is only relevant if you have a county that's on a state boundary. If you have a county on a state boundary where there's a possibility of another state's name being entered on one side of the road, make sure you have those clearly done. This is something easy for us to script unless it's a left-right issue on a state boundary. So I'm trying to think of counties that we have on state boundaries. We do have a few.
McCurtain.
Dunklin.
Yes.
Anything in Oklahoma. Yeah, McCurtain is one of those, yeah. But yeah, so there are a few that we're going to be hitting. We did some in Illinois, but they were on a river, so those are kind of easy. So the country.
Grove.
I'm sorry, Grove. Yeah, Grove is
actually a little bit.
A little bit if it goes to Arkansas, yeah. The county left and right, all of us, almost every county you work in will have a county line road, of some road that follows the county boundary. The nice thing about this is that there are very few new county line roads ever done. They're usually section line roads or highways, and they've been established forever. So again, end of the week, you could just go back and select everything and just encode all these in. They're manually entry. There's something you need to do, but it doesn't have to be at the very time that you put a new road in. First of all, we don't always, not a lot of new roads that we're adding compared to the number of structures. However, if you ever do put in a county line road, make sure you code the left side of the road at the time that you put that road in, as soon as you draw that road. And use the name of the county with the word county.
Right.
Okay. So if it's Grove, it could be Ottawa County, it could be Delaware County, but use the name of the county and the word county.
On that note, Susan.
Yes.
When you the PSAP name should almost always have 911 at the end. Don't just say McCurtain County.
Yeah, Marshall County 911. Okay.
Yeah.
We'll release some when we have this document that goes out to you. We'll have some descriptive, language.
Some of them even have better names, like the Newton County Communications Center or something. Yeah. I don't, I mean, it could be something that's more
follow
specific.
The guidelines of what's already in your data, and we'll talk about that. Okay. Right. The zip code. This is another one because you're entering the postal community up here in the form. The zip code can be something that you enter at the end of the week just from a list, like you could, you can do it at the time that you put the, Grove, Oklahoma. Then when the zip code is
74344.
Yeah, but you'd have to have that zip code number in as well. Again, this is something that it's just your awareness of, like I know that when I know what my zip codes are for a lot of the counties, like for my Grady County, I know what all the zip codes are, and they're easy to fill in. Okay, and we can do that on the form for the address points, but not the center lines. Okay, so that's a pretty easy one to fill in. And let me tell you, if your community that you're working in has a couple of zip codes, don't stress it. Usually in these smaller communities, there's one for the PO boxes and one for the rural areas. And if you're in the city, just pick one of them. There's no zip code police out there. Don't stress because there's a zip code break in, whatever. It's impossible to know that St. Louis, which part of St. Louis you're in. I would just use 63101. So, okay. Okay, so this topo exceptions.
Yeah.
There are, this is a topology exception. All dead ends have to be entered as has dangle. That means a dangle is just something that doesn't connect to anything else. Is this a domain, Glenn?
Well, it will be a domain, and yeah, the domain values are actually a little different than what's listed in the parentheses there. But yes, that will be. There's going to be four. You got the four basic values that are going to be there. Yes.
Has dangle means that road is a dead end, and if it's a dead end, you just type in has dangle. Has bound means it is on a boundary between two counties, two PSAPs, two provisioning boundaries, two
ESNs.
It is a boundary road. It is not, and it might just be between a fire or a law or EMS boundary. But if it's snapped to a boundary, again, I would say that you're going to be doing one of those a year, maybe. I mean, this is not going to be very frequently as an analyst that you're going to be drawing in roads on boundaries. Both would be a dead end road that is also on a boundary.
Yep.
And none means it's just a normal road. It doesn't have a dead end, red segment doesn't have a dead end, and it's not on a boundary. So those are the four choices, and that we're going to have those spelled out for you, and we will help you. If you have any questions, you can always call one of us to get that. And remember, again, this looks like a lot of work.
Define a dead end.
A dead end is a road that ends with no roads connecting to it.
One of the endpoints of a road segment is not connected to another road.
Right, got it. So it doesn't matter if it's got a circle or a cul-de-sac, it's still a dangle because that segment doesn't attach to anything else.
And actually, yeah, to get this filled in manually is great. If it's not though, yeah, that is a super easy script that does exist to go ahead and tag the Y's and N's on every single one.
Tag the dangles,
yeah.
And the dead end again is the one would be, yes or no, which is you've drawn a segment, it doesn't connect to anything else.
It's actually part of the Oklahoma model.
Weird. Okay.
Yeah, I know.
So when you extend a segment, you have to be conscious of the other segment may have a dangle on it and change it.
If you extend a segment to connect to another road that it wasn't connected to before, you would.
Yeah, so these on the manual entries on the topo and the dead ends, they're going to be entered by you when you add a new segment or when you spatially change another segment. It could also be affected.
Well, yeah, Curtis,
for example, Curtis, you could put another road
phase. They build a new phase of this subdivision, and this road now is continuing on.
Yeah.
Right. So
it's
either
no longer is a dead end.
Well, right, or
yeah,
correct. I mean, unless you actually extend it, and it probably will no longer become a dead end because there'll be other intersections that are going to happen, and anyway.
Ryan has done that many times in I know in Wagner already, where we get these phase 1, phase 2. And this road that dead ended now is going to extend and then hit a T intersection. So that's not a dead end when it hits a T. It's a dead end when you get to the end and you have to U-turn and turn around and go back. So, from the practical on the ground experience anyway.
Yeah, I think for the purposes of validation, it's not going to matter if it's still coded as dead ends, if it doesn't, it won't make any difference?
Well, we still want to make sure, make every effort to make them correct. So.
Sure. But that's really just for the purpose of validation.
And I would say that, after when we're starting these rules now, when you have a subdivision, if Danny gets a new one in Sykeston, or if Julie gets one in Scott or whatever, I guess Scott's going to be Danny's. If Julie gets one in Marshall, whatever. Kathleen gets, Kathleen is so unlikely to ever get one in Carroll or Cheriton, right? Kathleen or Brown.
Right.
But if she did, and she had questions, when it's time to draw that subdivision in, you're going to talk to somebody like Glenn or myself or Ryan, somebody, if you have questions that can, or Curtis, somebody that can give you guidance on that to make sure they're coded correctly. It won't take long. It's, most subdivisions, if we have 5 or 6 roads in them, they're not like ginormous.
Yeah,
so
I would imagine for the people that have to do the subdivisions that get the plats and put entire subdivisions in, that you would put those in as you normally would and put all your provisionals out and all that. And then at the end, you're going to come in here and calculate a bunch of stuff. That's how I would.
Yeah, I would do the whole subdivision, then I would come back and just start selecting things and doing the extra coding, because they're all going to be most are going to be the same. The things that will not be the same are going to be your GWIS, your IDs. Those are going to not be the same for everything in the subdivision, but a lot of these other values will be. Not obviously not dead ends and things, but so I think though that you understand here if you understand what these values represent. Okay, you got to completely fill out the form up here. You're going to manually fill out a few things here. That obviously says county. I said it, but it said country earlier. And then there are some things on the end that are going to be scripted. Okay, I again would move this RCL number, Julie, up here so that we can fill those in.
It could be both, Susan, couldn't it?
I don't think so, because we have to worry about splits, Glenn.
Well, no, I understand that, but if it does come to myself or Ryan, the data for upload, and there's a half a dozen that are needing it, I've got the scripts to do it.
So you have a script that's going to do the following. It's going to say, hey, these roads have there are duplicate IDs on these roads because they didn't change them when they split them. And so now we're going to then we're going to assign the side of the road and the RCL.
No, I'm talking about just the ID bits, not the side.
Okay.
The ID.
If we don't assign the RCL number manually, I think we are going, until we have a script that does it all, I think we're going to be in trouble.
Okay. All right. Well, I got one that does it. So
with splits. Okay, you told me we didn't. We had a long talk about establishing side of the road.
This exists. But you're right. When you do a split, it's best to do it right then and there, because you're going to also have to change the RCL GWIS for those points. So that's a good practice to do that manually. That would be the best way to do it.
Okay, we're going to talk about how we do it with splits, and then we're going to have another training to clarify all the mud that we've stirred up in this conversation by not preparing adequately in advance. Apparently, you and I, Glenn, this is on us, you and me, because I think we're going to have everything up horribly for everybody.
We're going to have a little bit more understanding of the details.
I'd say that, Julie, we should just stop.
This is good. It's a good.
But we needed to. This is thought process, not all the way developed, because we are trying to give instructions for analysts moving forward from today.
Right.
And if we're not ready to do that, we should be changing this conversation. And
okay, well, all right. I apologize. As far you are correct, Susan. My thoughts on the whole scripting part of this are really kind of irrelevant. If we make this a manual thing, then when it comes to me, what I do to fix things that may not or may or may not be done doesn't really matter.
Well, I think that if we just, package the scripts into, like the regular, like calculation scripts that we already have, then this kind of all becomes a non-issue, but we're not at that point yet. So
we're not at that point, and we have 7 counties worth of data to upload, and 4 or 5 of those going forward to maintain. We've already uploaded to Illinois 3 counties. We have to maintain those. We are in the middle of getting our Alabama one uploaded and in maintenance. We haven't even started with Missouri yet.
It's only to everyone's benefit to understand, these specific requirements in the NG911 model.
I would like to go over the split center line, how we do it manually, and take questions on that. And then I would suggest that Glenn and I and Julie meet to revise this document and have another 20, 30 minutes on just going over the final document.
Okay.
Okay, so in ArcGIS, a segment has one endpoint and one beginning point and possible, nodes in the middle, vertices, where the road bends and curves and moves around, okay? A single segment has a single ID. All the addresses attached to it have that same ID in the RCL ID field, okay? RCL NGUID field, whatever. If you split the road, if you're, first of all, drawing a subdivision, don't assign your IDs till they're all split, okay? It's easier that way. But if you have to split a road, Danny, Henry County, yesterday you put a private road in. I watched you as you split the road that private road attached to. We're not in this mode with you now, but if we had been yesterday, you would have had to think about, okay, so I just split this road. Now, using the address it tools, it has assigned the same ID to both sides of the road. It will have split the ranging, but it will have not known to split the ID and add a new ID. Our new product will. This one, our old product doesn't. So you would have had to look at those IDs, and Glenn has made the recommendation that we reassign both of them instead of keeping one and reassigning the other.
Absolutely.
That's fine. That's fine. So what you will do is when you split a road, I'm just going to go ahead and split this little tiny road because what the heck. And we split this road. We have 2 different road segments now where there used to be one. Just for a matter of course, I'll show you what we have here. We have that road ID of 1641. We have another road ID of 1641. Okay, we need to give both segments new IDs. Okay, so we're going to find out what our largest ID used is. That would be 2859, it looks like. Make sure I'm at the top. Oh, I'm not at my list. I'm in the middle of my list. Sorry, guys. Here we go. 2863, excuse me, read that wrong. So our next highest numbers are 2864 and 2865. We're going to go ahead and select both of those segments. And we can do this manually. You can just pick like one at a time if you want, however you want to do this. But let's say I pick that one. And in this panel, you find the ID. Well, first of all, the RCL number was going to be 2864. And in this one, it's going to be 2865. We're going to say you don't have to recalculate this. When we get the data to upload, we're just going to automatically recalculate those NGUID numbers based on these RCL numbers. And we do have a tool that checks for duplicates, so we'll find the duplicates if you forget to change any of these. We only have one road here, one address on this road, so that address point also needs the new ID. If there were multiple, you can just use, you can select them with any of the tools and then just change them all at once. So that one also needs the number I've already forgotten. 2865. So the site number, I'm sorry, this one here becomes 2865. And everything else remains the same. Okay. So I don't believe, Glenn, correct me if I'm wrong, in the address points, are we keeping the RCL num or just the RCL NGWID?
Just the RCL NGWID.
Yeah, so you have to just change this first point of it.
The num field that we have, that site num, or actually the NGWID num, which it'll be NGWID num in both roads and addresses. That is not a next-gen field. It is strictly there to facilitate the generation of IDs.
Right. So we're using that.
It is the focus. That is the focus. That number is pretty much what drives all the IDs. Okay. That and the agency.
Because we don't have the RCL num in here. You're just gonna change the ID itself. So that basically has split the road, assign the next two IDs, change the number. That's all there was to it. Okay. There were multiple homes. It was a longer one. You can select all the numbers at once and just calculate it into the table. It is fine for multiple homes to have the same RCL NGWID, but it is not okay for multiple homes to have the same site number or site NGWID. Those are unique to that specific coordinate for that specific phone. If they're stacked on top of each other, they each get a separate ID too. Okay. So, but again, it's the relationship between those address points, which are sites, and the center line, all of those attached to one specific road segment, get that road segment's ID. If you join a road, you make two unique segments, one segment again. I don't know how often any of you guys do this, but it does, possible to do that.
You get a new number.
You're going to get a brand new number then. We're going to go ahead and give this the next largest number, which I believe was 2866, correct, guys?
Why don't you just turn your parcels off?
Yeah, I could do that. So look at this. What happened here, though, Glenn? Didn't keep any of that when I joined them.
Because they're not address it fields. They get all they all get nulled out.
But on the
on a join that happens.
Don't join if you can possibly help it, guys. We'll have to recalculate everything. So let me talk about. Let me see if I can. I just told Michael yesterday we're not going to make him do that. How many of you have a real need to do a lot? Do you do a lot of joining of segments with this data that's already in maintenance? I'm going to recommend you don't do it. Do it as little as possible with this remediation data, just because we'll have to recalculate all those IDs. So, okay. Any questions on the process of assigning, what you do when you have a split? Looks like we're good. Julie?
Yeah.
From your perspective, do you have anything to add?
I think we're gonna revisit this and resend it out. But some of these things, it's not gonna hurt to try to do them, right? It's not gonna hurt the data any, right? If we decide to start trying to put in the PSAPs left and right and the things you can fill in just to get the practice. I was also gonna say, I will probably, when I start putting in the first few things with all this stuff, I'm gonna have either Susan or Glenn watch me and make sure, make sure everything's going the right way. And then,
is everybody comfortable? Are you all comfortable using this address? The attribute panel here. So, like, when instead of using the table, when you start an edit session, and you've got whatever you have selected that's editable. If you click on this little tab over here for attributes, it just kind of opens up what looks like an identify.
Can I type it in there and it, yeah.
You know.
When I was doing the filling in the 250 RCL NGWIDs for push, I use this extensively. I use this
Why
in
not?
combination
Why
with the
not?
attribute table.
Why not table view and do it there?
Table view is fine. If you
Table view
only
is
have-
okay, but like
yeah.
I like this a little better sometimes, Curtis.
It's just, you know, I think it gives you a
Because it's
vertical
more focused
display.
in terms of way.
Yeah.
It's for bulk things. I think the table's better.
But isn't that
Yeah.
the vertical display? Isn't that vertical display associated with how you sort it, like a alphabet or versus?
Yeah.
Yeah, I believe it can be.
No, I actually don't know if I think that on
It
the
is-
No, I mean,
identify
what is
it is.
it? Because
On
it's going to be
identify
one or
it
the
is.
other.
Yeah, it's one or the other. But you know,
Yeah.
so in this case, if you only have one or two, it will list. If you have a whole bunch of addresses, you know, it will list them both
Curtis,
here. You can go from
field
one to
order-
the other, and
the
it
field
limits
order-
your entry based on what you have selected too. Where in a table, I guess you
Right.
could just go to selection.
Right.
So
I
it's
like
just,
the,
you
I
know,
like the
it's-
way it drops down. I like it the way it drops down so you can pick another one, like what you did there, where you said you click on the road attribute
Yeah.
or road
Yeah.
or center line segment, and then you did an address, or you can
Yeah.
even do the driveways or whatever, and it all comes up at one time. You can just click
Yeah.
there instead of
What I was
trying to sort it across.
what I was doing in push is I would have 5 points on a road that needed to have the RCL NGWID put in. So I select all the points in the road. They all show up over here on the attributes pane. But I would just get the RCL NGWID from the roads real quick in there, and then just go back to the table, which was showing me my points and only showing selected, and then just do a Control V enter, like boop, 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 and I get like 5 of them done real quick. So you'll figure out ways to combine these, but it is a pretty handy way to get a different way. And also when Susan's not doing it, and I probably wouldn't mess with it either, but you see those little buttons on the right that are kind of between, down lower, Susan, and off to the right now, up to the right, to your right,
down the very
and
corner.
down. That's where you can do, okay, yeah, I was going to say, don't start clicking on them. It changes the way, you can, change that. You can do different things with how this appears. It's kind of cool.
Yeah, it just okay.
Anyway,
Hey, just a question. On some of these things where we have these kind of process things like this, why couldn't one of you just sit down and record privately how you're doing it, and then just throw that up on the screen, run through the program, let everybody just sit and watch to the end of it, and then have questions?
That's a good idea. We could do that, Curtis.
And that would kind of speed up the interruption, and you can always go back to rewind it back to that
Right.
point if you want to look at it again.
that was a category of videos I started making like over a year ago, Curtis, called quick vids, where I just did a thing. I would just do it and record it. I'd have commentary, but it was like a 15-minute thing. And then you could watch it at your heart's content. And if you had questions, you could, whoever made the video would be happy to answer them, I'm sure. But
I was just looking at it from the standpoint that it'd be easier for you guys to fit it in your schedule, because you're just going to do that as I'm going to record while I show you how to do this. And then at the end, when you come up on one of these training things, you just run it. And then you can talk over it while it's running if you wanted to. And then when you get to the end, you just stop and say, did anybody have any questions about it? And then you kind of get.
I think one of the drawbacks is that requires another level of preparation and time. But I mean, if time can be found,
I think it's a good suggestion. I think we can accommodate that.
Yeah.
I was just looking more of your schedule and stuff. It doesn't matter to me because we still have the same hour or whatever. So
Right.
Well, I think the big thing for right now is that this is a to be continued type of thing. Go with what you think you can do out of the new stuff that has presented. But there will be an updated guideline coming out eventually and some follow-up training about it. The big thing is, Curtis, I don't know if you know, but we were going to give you cotton to take care of because we get like not very much cotton. If that works for you, you'll get the live data. Glenn currently has the cotton live data. Is that correct?
Yep, you'll get it from me. I'll be done with it today.
So
okay, that's
go
what
back to
works for
you.
me.
I mean, I'll still help out if she calls. And I'll just do like we already tag team it anyway, Curtis. So it's just going to be you having the live data. And then Danny, we'll work together this afternoon to get Scott and everything to you, if it's not already to you.
Okay.
He's got it.
And then go through, any questions you have about Scott. So.
Okie dokie.
So, okay. Well, with that, everybody have a good rest of your morning, and we'll talk
Do
later.
Julie and I and Susan want to stay on and Ryan for 5 minutes or
Yep, that's fine.
what?